Hey everybody, how's it going? It's me, Samuel here with conversations with myself. New year, everybody. Looks like we have some goings on pretty much all over the place. Lots of those topics I won't get into, but there is something that I would like to discuss, and it's not going to be specifically just me this time. Shout out to everything going on right now. However, I do want to address some things and talk about some things and whatnot. And so I know people are looking at the shirt. It's Mardi Gras. Um, People don't know Mardi Gras originally started here in Mobile. So Mobile has a particularly unique way of celebrating Mardi Gras. There's certain days that they celebrate that aren't really celebrated in the traditional sense of Mardi Gras, but the time period is the same. In between Mobile and New Orleans, it's the same. However, Mobile is the original start of the Mardi Gras celebration. Just in case people didn't know. So, shout out to this little football that I got here that I got last year at Mardi Gras with the family, right there. And as always, the elephant in the room. Take that how you want. So, today I wanted to talk a little bit about tribalism. Um, if you know, you know. With everything that's going on right now, so many people are taking so many different sides. And so I pulled this up on my phone. I just wanted to make sure I got this right, which is why I pulled it up. And it's the definition of tribalism, according to the Oxford Dictionary, is the state or fact of being organized in a tribe or tribes. A lot can be taken from that, to be quite honest, if you really think about it. Um, Let me cook for a minute. And so I'm getting into something. Just let me cook. Um, that doesn't necessitate family. Not one word, rather, in that definition does family pop up in that. So when we talk about tribalism, what are the different types? Um, it's a group of people with the same mindset. That's that's one of the most basic definitions of it. Again, in that same definition, you don't hear family, but we become very committed to our tribe. And what makes us that way? You know, just something to discuss. I mean, now you're probably wondering what type of examples. Some of them are common. You already get it: black, white, Democrat, Republican. You know, um, if we even go back to the time that the natives were very, very active and very, very populated in the United States, yes, there were bloodlines that were within tribes, but the Seminoles were known to take in black slaves who were escaping things and integrating them into tribes. Many tribes, many Native American tribes did that. So That's why when we say tribalism, it doesn't always necessitate family. It necessitates a connection, some sort of like-mindedness, that makes us feel safe. And so, part of the particular tribalism I want to cover tonight stems from a podcast I seen the other day. Shout out to Corey Holcomb and 5150. Also, Anton Daniels. Um, I'm not trying to bite off of everything that occurred in this particular exchange between these two black men, but the conversation was very indicative of what we experience in our own race. There's so much tribalism in there. I am pretty sure, and I'm going to throw this disclaimer in there, that there's going to be a division of how people feel about this conversation and where they feel they lie in this particular discussion. And so nothing I say is meant to offend, nothing I say is meant to come off a particular way. I'm really just going to address, my perception. So here we go. So if you saw this podcast, and if you understand the situation, Corey Holcomb is a stand up comedian. He is a blue language type of comedian. His jokes are rather they're funny if you have a sense of humor and can take your human emotion out of some of the things that he says. I have seen him perform. I've watched his show, 5150, followed his career. Very interesting OG, you know. But that goes to the whole thing about where do you place someone in that category? Like, can they just be a comedian and you can leave them where they're at, or do you make them a pillar of the community? You know, and he is honestly not someone I would make a pillar of the community. But in a time of so much distress and division, it's okay to have some levity. And he's a real individual, and he's 100% about the way that he feels. And there are a lot of things he says that I agree with and that I rock with, but some of his jokes are just, they're jokes. You got to have a sense of humor about this stuff. And so I never get why people get so caught up in these things. Anyhow, so he has a podcast. And so I listen to it occasionally. Primarily, it's pretty much him doing a stand up and having people on that, you know, agree with them. I don't in the most, and I'll say this in the most respectful way, I don't feel like he's ever challenged on his show about some of the things that he says. I do encourage you to go watch him. If you're a fan of stand-up comedy or a fan of Corey Holcomb, I do encourage you to watch him. However, when it comes to political things and that certain level of discussion, certain people just can't have it, you know. And so they tend to be out of their element. And so I can admit I've been there. There's a lot of us out there that can admit that we've been out of our element in situations. The key is understanding that, knowing when to pull away and change the topic, or try to find common ground somewhere. So anyhow, On his show, he has a couple of co-hosts. One of them happens to be Ice T's ex-wife that she has a son with. He has a son with her, and so over the years, they've had many, many different discussions. Different things happen. According to stuff, Corey is notorious for kind of having rocky relationships with people, but there's two sides to everything. So I never judge. I'm not in the middle of any of that. Me covering this part of it just leads to something deeper, and that's the only reason I'm bringing any of this up. Anyhow, Corey has a guy on his show named Anton Daniels, and shout out to Anton Daniels. Very, very interesting man. He is a black conservative. He is a Republican. Very knowledgeable and educated. No matter what side of the political arena you're on, there were certain things in this interview where he was spitting facts. And so Corey is definitely a Democrat. He says that, through his own admission, he's not a member of any party, but his ideology, everything he speaks, he definitely leans, Democratic. And so they're having this discussion, and what ends up evolving goes beyond politics and goes to that tribalistic thorn in the side of black Americans is the black man versus the ninja. Just saying. Let's be realistic here. For those who know, you know. So there is a black man having a discussion with a ninja. And it erupts into one of the most defining moments in that tribalistic civil war that's ever been seen. And for me, honestly, while it was very entertaining, it was very, very sad to see. The reason why is because it just always seems like no matter what happens, we find a way to dog one another. Even having this conversation. And that's what the interesting part is about this is that we can't have a conversation about self-examination without vetting those in our community, without questioning the type of people that we have represent us, without being persecuted for being Uncle Toms. Which, by the way, I want to officially get this out of the way. If you've ever read the book Uncle Tom's Cabin, you would understand that persona that's given about Uncle Tom in the book, that character's name is actually Sambo. So when you call a black man Uncle Tom, what you think you're doing, Uncle Tom actually is the hero. Sambo is what you're referring to. Just to make that clear. And it just seems like every single time we question things in our community and about our place in it and about things that happen and vetting one another and all that, then we're wrong for questioning that. You know, we're somehow a sellout. We're somehow And I just never understood that. And I know that anybody in the comments, you can come for me. It doesn't matter. It's all comments. I'm not affected by it because it's the way that I view life, and I love my people. Absolutely, you know. I love my people. I'm proud of what my ancestors have provided, and I honor and sacrifice the things that they have gone through. And because I do that, sometimes I think if they were to look now and see the things that were going on in their own community and the things they were putting up with, they'd be disgusted. And nobody's having this real talk about that. And no, don't get me wrong, every race has a subculture in their own race that does things differently. I'm not going to get into it, but we do. We all have it. But for some reason, in our community, this makes it public, more than anything. And I guess I'm just trying to figure out what does it take to bring us together, not just as a race, but as a whole in general. My grandmother used to always say, charity starts at home and then it spreads abroad. So you really have to fix things at home before you can take care of anything else out there. A house divided amongst itself cannot stand. And that's not just a saying. That's fact. That's canon. Anyhow, um, so Anton Daniels thinks completely different than Corey Holcomb when it comes to politics. Um, and then it becomes this point where these two men engage in an argument because they both disrespect each other, and it becomes a get back sense. And so this intelligent conversation devolves into a ninja moment. And it's so disappointing. A lot of people feel a lot of different ways about it. There are some people that are completely, on Corey's side. Like, who is this sellout? Who is this wannabe white guy? And then there's Anton's side, which is, this is what happens when you try to have conversations with ninjas. You know, they're the ones that make us look bad, and the interesting part about the whole discussion, and I encourage you to go watch this, even if you're not a fan of either or don't know who I'm talking about. Again, shout out to Anton Daniels and Corey Holcomb. Go look it up. It's a thought provoking discussion, which is what made me want to do this show tonight. So that's where the idea of tribalism comes in. It's like there's tribalism in the white community too. There are white people who see themselves in a different light than certain other white people. And, I'm not going to get into any racial epithets any further than that, but what what is it that endears us to be so separate? What is it that has us not on common ground, if that makes sense? It's a tough discussion, you know. Um, it's like black people who question things in their own community, such as myself. I remember before I had this TikTok debacle, the just I don't even want to get into it right now, but I was on a live one time and I was in a group having a live discussion. And so someone had asked me, and it was another black person, had asked me, what would it take? What do we as a community have to do? And I said, well, first of all, every community has their own set of things. And because every community has their own set of things, that does not necessitate that we shouldn't address those things. Like, well, because this community did it, it's okay. That back and forth stuff that doesn't fix anything in anybody's respective community. So if we're really talking about our community and the things that need to be fixed, the black on black crime, the rate of violent crimes. Yeah, everybody commits violent crimes, but that doesn't mean we have to accept those numbers and accept violent crime. Like, as a whole, white, black, Indian, whatever the case may be, crime is crime. It has to stop. Us black people, unfortunately, I hate to say it, we disproportionately are looked at the ones that commit the most crime. I understand the statistics may say something different, different time periods and things like that. But any type of crime I've ever really experienced has been from my own people. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. The point is how do we fix things in our own community was the whole question. And so I said, well, first of all, we have to vet those that we have represent us. And I'm trying to point out that even though we are discussing tribalism, how one way or another you're going to end up on a side. So as I say this, people are going to believe I'm on one side. I'm going to feel I'm on a certain side, and people are going to think that I'm on a certain side. But uh, I think both sides, no matter what, we're all the same, no matter what, in the end. But I'm saying if we're talking about this thing, or if we're having a micro discussion about this is what I'm saying. So anyhow, you have a side that feels like white people are the problem. That generational trauma has affected us. Chattel slavery was a traumatic experience on a group of people, and there's no denying that. Then you have that situation of civil rights era. Before that, the Jim Crow era, things like that, and a lineage of people that have just been through it. You know, we've been through it, and so I never lose sight of that, especially when I listen to the stories my grandmother told me about growing up and things like that. So very harrowing, very disturbing in many ways, the things that she experienced and the stories that were passed down. Um, and that's why I live the way that I do, because I honor them because of this. I hear this argument, or this sentiment rather, where people say, we'll say in our own race. I want to get out of America. And then on the flip side, you'll hear white people say, go back to Africa. First of all, we have no connection to Africa anymore other than our ancestors. I don't say that in a disrespectful way. I say that in their sacrifices and what they've been through here. I could never leave this country. It'd be a disservice to them. What do I look like leaving a country that they lost their lives to build? No matter how they lost it, they lost their lives on their literally their backs. So I guess I just don't see it that same way. I have no connection to Africa. And what a lot of people don't really want to talk about is the fact that it wasn't like boats came from Europe and just swept in and snatched black people. It was literally kings were selling black people. We were selling our own people. Those are the facts. It doesn't take away from maybe the military influence that would have occurred from the Europeans showing up. They had way more advanced weaponry. So you really got to look at that argument, what I'm saying here. But whatever the case may be, it was a slave trade in many, many cases. So people could, in Africa, kings and queens could keep their power. You know, there's so many moving parts and so many things that are different about history that I think so many of us, we all get caught up in the major part of it. And so there's some of us, like I said, that don't necessarily feel like, like we're vigilant and understanding of the past, but we also know that, you know, we got to move forward. We got to get past all of that. And we can't blame those that we currently live with for the things that other people did. Like, we can't necessarily do that. And so, but honestly, with the way systemic racism has been, we are talking about things like redlining, and I'm not going to say that I haven't been through things that I've questioned whether or not it was race, but I guess I just never let it stop me. I feel like all of us, to some degree, have some level of racism in us. We accept it depending on the level. There's levels that are absolutely deplorable. I should be more like down here, sorry. There's levels that are absolutely deplorable, and then there's levels that are just, some people don't know any better, if that makes sense. But a lot of us are racist toward our own selves on every single side, you know. And I guess what makes us do that? What makes us get to that point? Sometimes I wonder. But anyhow, so there's always been this war. Black people, ninjas, dark skinned black people, light skinned dudes. Like, I still see it. I watch a lot of podcasts. Shout out to No Jumper. I where it's like so many things about race come up, you know, um, whether or not someone can speak on something dictates what color they are, you know. And that always floored me because people's experiences is people's experiences. And I don't know. It's weird that we can't find common ground on certain things. Don't y'all think that's funny? When did that change? I feel like we were less racist 20, 30 years ago. As for how I see things, I obviously I don't live my life a certain way. You guys all know me. But I think that there can be something learned for every aspect. I mean, I've had so many adventures in my life and been fortunate enough to see so many different walks of life that I guess I've just absorbed everything and taken from it what I've needed to survive in life and get to where I've needed to be. And so I see different sides of things. You know, like in that whole discussion between Anton and Corey, Corey asked Anton, "Have you ever been to jail?" And Anton says, "No, of course not." And Corey says, "I can tell." And Anton says, "Well, have you been to jail?" And Corey says, "No." And so Anton says, "Well, what the F are we talking about here?" And Corey says, "Because even though I haven't been to jail, having grown up in Chicago, I've been around people who have been in jail and they taught me certain ways and how to be around individuals and how to conduct yourself as a man, and they've been some of the smartest people I've known." And so Anton says, "Well, I've never been to jail. I'm never going, and I would never have in my circle anyone who's had to force themselves to be a certain way in order to survive." And it was a very interesting thing to hear because they both made very good points. They both made very good points. You know, I've been on both sides of that coin, and it was just a shame that they couldn't find common ground. And so, what turned into an argument, or what started as an argument between a black man and a ninja, for me, just ended up turning into a whole disappointment of people trying to find common ground on anything. We don't all have to be alike, you know? It's okay if there are black men that are conservative. It's okay if there are black men that are liberal. It's okay if there are black men, black people in general, moderates or whatever. We all got a little something to contribute. I know that sounds corny, but it was just disheartening because there was so much that could have been learned from both sides. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But I got a lot to say about that further down the road. So I think we're going to continue this conversation further. I just kind of wanted to get back into the mix, kind of get this whole conversation started, delve into some deeper things. I figured out that I really need to start taking notes on this stuff before I address it. So I've been thinking a lot about it. So there's a lot that's going to be built up. So this is going to go on and on. Starting some changes. here in the studio slash guest room slash office. So things are coming along. Bear with me. Me and my 30 subscribers, and I know I don't have many, but for the ones that are and the ones that are paying attention, thank you. Anyhow, so I hope you all have a great evening. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for the next part. I'm going to send some more shout outs to people. Shout out to Courtney and Nisi, my employees at work. They are so awesome. Shout out to my wife Nancy. We went ahead and did it. So that's another thing that happened that's been awesome. Love her very much. Anyhow, so life is good. Anyhow, so have a good time. I will talk to you soon. Bye.